demos. Let's talk about net 5. Well, the demos.
Yeah, I did promise I'd have a demo this week.
And?
So I've got 2 probably if there's time. We had a look a while ago at secrets, so I might start with that.
That's what you said? I'm kidding. At least we'll see how to check the secret. Any other demo? Okay. So status, Orchard 1. Orchard 1, some things were merged. We are the 8. So all these things, okay. Fixes, Boolean conversion, error. So we merged this pull request last time. The idea is that there is a custom binder now for bools, for checkboxes, because of the fact that the current model binder will just throw an exception if the value is empty, which can happen apparently. Remember me when I said exception, that's this thing, that's a branch revert fix. And it has been undone by Matteo. Apparently they found an issue. We will have to look at that during triage. I did provide some feedback on the code about the potential reference exception, so I hope it's not that, we'll see. But apparently it broke something and they found the issue, so they are working on that, we'll see that. Orchard core. So from the first, which was there, make method async, we talked about, this is the one we talked about, that this one was converted, yeah, probably to an async call. So now it's suffixed with async. Must be it. Add missing tag helper references. How is that possible that we are missing so many references to the resource management module project?
So the issue comes because the tag helpers are found when they're in development, because we do because we have the runtime compilation. But when you change the environment from development to production, it stops working if you don't have a direct reference on the tag helper project.
Okay.
So it can slip through. It can slip through a bit, and the users one possibly has been like that for a while. But it was a script that may not necessarily have been used a lot.
Yeah, and the issue is that compilation doesn't find the issue because it's a runtime resolution. Like you can use the A tag. Yeah, sure, it will compile, but at runtime it will have a different behavior based on the projects you reference, and you don't get the behavior you expect. So there is nothing more than, or nothing less that you can have than a functional test to be sure that it will work. I see. Interesting.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably a note for anybody using Razor. If you see a tag helper turn up in your HTML, it's because you don't have the reference.
Yeah, sad. So sad. Just thinking.
I did ask Zoltan if one of his analyzers could pick it up, but he did a little bit of a look around and couldn't find one.
But it's because it's hard to say, because I mean, you put tags and it's just something else that will read the tags or not. So there is no way to know that what you meant was using a custom tag helper or not using a tag helper. It's hard. Okay.
Yeah, for functional tests and
Yeah.
you know, it pays to change your environment from development before you to a staging server test stuff.
We merged the Redis Services branch, and I saw that Chantieri creating new PRs based on that, or split the PR into other ones. So we'll look at it on Thursday. Marcello is the new contributor. Antoine, I don't see any PR for that. Taghelper for a tag with asset-href attribute. We merge it on Thursday, I think. So the idea is that the encore taghelper, okay, now can have, I need to show it better. So the same way we had the img tag ASP append version or asset-href, we had an asset src, something like that. So we can put a media path and it will be converted to the public URL. There is the same thing now to the a tag. You can put asset-href now, and then it would convert this href from a media URL to a public URL to the media. And I assume you also made the append version the same way. There was the same this thing for the image. With the version, the v query string. Okay. Useless order by. So yeah, so this PR we merged from Chantieri. Lots of changes on the string case and then some removal of order by usage. But it was hard to find among all those strings. Where is that? Yeah, I can't find it. Too many changes. Interesting. Useless IRunningShellTable injections, so removing something that is not necessary. Try to fix up your packages building. So something was broken. And then there is the fixes here.
Yeah, so when we went to the new .NET Core SDK, it was a 401, I can't remember now. Yeah, at stopped building.
So it broke something.
Yeah, most of the fixes are actually in the other PR. So I think what's happened is .NET Builds being more specific about requiring stuff, but only JT would know.
Oh, it's super interesting here. Let me see. So does it mean that, because if we see this change and it's an SDK breaking change, I see here the targets are changed. Does it mean that these targets will only work with the new SDK?
So it's a little hard to tell because it is the MS build, which is always a bit mysterious. But the problem was with the pack command. So they would build, they would run, but they wouldn't NuGet pack.
Yeah, that's good. Then that's okay. That's good then, because if that's it, if it's just a pack command, then it's just an issue at building the package.
Yeah,
and
I think everything was building fine. There was no test failures or building failures or anything like that. It just it failed on the pack.
Okay. What I assume we'll see from people who use the development feed and who haven't updated the new SDK if it broke anything. Okay. And this change also is interesting. The fact that the fact that you need to remove the S
Yeah, so you'll talk about .NET 5 in a minute, but I think we saw last week that the analyzer running a little bit harder on the CI because of it. So I wonder if some stuff's changing with MS build there, and we're starting to see those changes filter down a little bit.
Okay, a module project template with part settings. Module project template with part settings. So fixing that, content type part definition, display driver. Content type part definition. So it was wrong. Trying to understand the difference. If you are talking, Antoine, we didn't hear anything. Content type.
No. Everywhere else, we are using a type par definition, and in the module project template, we were using just par definition.
So was it not compiling, or it was not doing the same thing we wanted?
The settings were not displayed for the test part.
Okay. So it wasn't working. Good. Updates relog configuration sample. Okay. Documentation and adding. So you didn't add Marcello. He was already there.
I think it is a second contribution.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Questions? Questions. Then, for those who joined after we started, you can still say if you have demos. And in the meantime, we'll let Dean show us some stuff.
Sure, let me just share my screen. So this is just looking at something that we looked at some time ago as an idea that I had to kind of improve the management of user secrets. Specifically, the kind of conversation we were having originally was around the things like the email password and how to migrate that between servers, because at the moment we encrypt the password when it's entered here with the data protector, and then when you export that via a deployment plan, it doesn't work on the remote server because the protection keys are not the same, so it won't kind of unencrypt it. So I did a little demo on this a while ago, and then I completely forgot about it, and then I did a little bit more work on it. So I shall start from scratch again. So the idea was that I've introduced the idea of a secret kind of source or binding, where you can enter something like an authentication secret, like the SMTP password, and you can choose where it's going to come from. So at the moment, I've got the idea that these secrets are stored in either the database or in configuration. And we'd probably look to add a key vault provider as well at a later point. But at the moment, I'm just kind of getting all the moving parts moving correctly, I suppose. So the idea is that you can make this secret binding, and at the moment it's stored in the database. Obviously, that's not going to tell you what the secret is, but it's just a kind of note that there is actually something there. And then when you want to go and use that, for example, in the SMTP, you can enter your existing password, or you can just enter a plain text password, or you can use a liquid filter to access the password that is stored in the secrets module. So I'll save that again and hope that it still works. So what we can do now is send myself an email. And we see that it's been able to, via the liquid filter, go and find the secret from, in this case, I think it was configured for the database store. So the idea was that we could then, because this is much more of an impact than just email, but then in the other providers that we have where we want to be able to share these things between servers, we could use this module to do it. And probably the other bit to show that's related to it as well is the idea of an RSA key. So the idea with this one, I'll just show this. So there's the possibility of having lots of different types of secrets. The SMTP password simply suits a string, but the public-private RSA key pair is what we would use to actually encrypt these secrets when we're transmitting them to another server. So I made one previously, and at the moment the private key is there, visible, because I've just been doing some testing on it, but the idea would be that once you've created it, you'll never see the private key again. You'll only have the public key available, which you can then use as an encryption key. So what will happen when you go to make a deployment to a remote server of your secrets, because the majority of your secrets could now be stored in the secrets module, is you'll run this, execute it, possibly to a remote server, or possibly if you're building recipes locally, and you'll end up with a recipe that looks like this, one I prepared earlier. So what we have here is the encryption key. This is the encryption key used for this particular recipe. It's a let me get this right. It's a symmetric encryption key, which has then been encrypted with the public key from the RSA key pair, and then all of the bindings that are available for the secrets, where they're stored. If they're read-only, obviously we don't transmit them. Like so, if they're in an iConfiguration store, we don't export them. And then we have a little decryptor, which will use this key and the private key on the other end to decrypt them. And when you run this recipe on your remote server, assuming you have installed the private key on the remote server, it will all unencrypt correctly. If you don't have the private key, then it's considered secure. So it's considered secure to put this file into Git or email it to one of your colleagues, as long as you've installed the keys in another way on the alternative on the other server. So the idea was to have one of these. and probably also to have the one other provider that I haven't had quite time to do but would like to do is a workflows one where it has the slides up. Did I not make one of these? So we'll have a button, a second button here to generate a secret. That will generate a binding, and again you can reference it via your form with that kind of liquid syntax. So yeah, that's the demo as such. It's a little bit work in progress, and there's still quite a little bit of work to do it with it, but it's just seemed worthwhile to show it and get a little bit of feedback as to whether we felt that was the UI was working and the concept was working.
Feedback. So the stupid stuff first. I don't understand why you use the word binding. For me, just secret.
Yeah, we talked about that last time. So the idea is, and I did say I'd probably change it, but it also kind of makes sense because, say for example, you have, I'll show you an example, and it will include a secret, but that's right, I can delete that API key tonight. So when you have, say, a configuration store example, you have these values in your app settings under secrets, so they're available, but at this point you haven't created a binding for them because it doesn't just read all of these and make them suddenly available. You have to kind of bring them into the system and bind them. So it's a binding in the same way that that we would bind Azure shells to an options class. And the source in this case happens to be here. It might be the database, it might be Key Vault. So it means that, say, for example, if you're using Key Vault or configuration, that you can include these values outside of Orchard. So Key Vault, you have an interface to Azure where you might actually create some of these values. And you may find that perhaps your administrator creates the values and puts the secrets in, tells you what they are, what the access is, but doesn't.
Okay. So and I have another analogy then, which is, let's say you have a store from, because here the store is the app setting, right? For these ones, but you also have the store for the database, and another store will be Key Vault. So let's say I use Key Vault. The analogy will be better with Key Vault. In Key Vault, I have 100 secrets, but in Orchard, I just want to manage one of them. So you don't want to display the 100 of them here, just want to display one of them. And this is why you call them a binding, because this is like a registration, a secret definition or secret registration. And then you say in the store Key Vault, this is the name foo. Or here you say in the store database or in the store settings, this is the name blah. I see. Interesting.
Yeah, so you can sort of say a multi-tenancy scenario where you might have one Key Vault provider for the entire range of tenants, but you only want to make some available.
Okay. But
or say you have you've got a number of tenants, and you say to them all, right, you're allowed to use the email service that we provide. If you want to use it, add a binding with this key.
Yeah, I understand the binding word, but I still think if it was just called secrets, that would still be the same. You define what store, what's the name in the store. Maybe that's why name in the store, name. And no, I think that would still be called secret because I was confused by secret binding. I understand why you call it binding. I really understand it, but yeah.
Cool. So I'm happy to call it secrets. In the UI, I'd probably keep bindings or some similar terminology in the code.
That might be interesting to remember, to remind that it's not the fact there is a store dropdown. That's helping because you're like, okay, where do you want to read/write this secret from? But because it's not, this is the actual store. So what you say here is just a registration of the password. You don't store the password. The secret. But yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. Well, as long as it's clear. Personally, I will prefer to see secret, but I mean, if it's clear for everyone, I don't mind. Okay, that was the first stupid remark, and I apparently already said that very fast. And I like when I'm consistent, you know that. So second comment I had is when you go to the SMTP, I find it super not obvious that you can type a liquid expression here. So what I would suggest is the liquid expression is nice to have because we might require it for many reasons. But the project, the secrets project that you make, and the project, not the module, but the project, the module project, maybe module. The module should have an editor, as in a view component, the same way we have for media, because we want to be able to reuse a field where we can just pick a named secret.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Last time we talked about this, we said I had two fields there, and you said go with liquid and bring it down to one field. But I don't really see the issue with having a second field here and an ISO dropdown where you just select the SMTP password.
So remind me then why you want to have two fields? Or in case you want to type yourself one, that's what you mean?
Yeah, because you still want to be able to type your normal password. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you know, this module is probably not for everybody.
Yeah, but maybe then the editor should just then help you create a new secret with this value.
So that is probably what I'd do with workflows. So there's no reason that we couldn't do it here.
Yeah, to use the same editor that will have an option to say, create my own secret, and then it will help you create it and then select the value from there. I don't know, something like that. Or maybe point you to the secrets. No, maybe just a link to the secrets management. And then you say, no, you want to insert a password here, then go file your password somewhere in the secret section and come back here to select your value.
So that would work. It might be a little
too much.
Would it be breaking for anybody else?
It will not, because it's for instance the SMTP.
Because the value would still be stored there, and it would be only if you were to want to change the value that it would then lead you through the process of creating a new one.
So it will break.
It's a little breaking. And it's a little breaking, say, for example, in workflows where are we? Where at the moment we've just got this is available and stored, and kind of want to move this, optionally move this to the secrets module. It would have to be optional because you don't want to break what's there, but I think this would have a big benefit for forms. Like forms are
that was one of the main issues with forms also, that you lose the token when you regenerate. Even in startup, yeah. Okay. Okay, so I see what you mean. Yeah.
But I agree, the liquid is not. So the liquid was quite a lot of work, and I'm not even sure that I've done it right, to be honest, because I've had to. You have to register a secret liquid filter. Because you wouldn't want to have the liquid filters available in your standard templates.
You have to solve the same issue, because how do you know it's a liquid filter to execute, or is the password?
I just looked to see if it's got, you know, it's got some problems, not problems, but it's got some pain.
So maybe just that, yeah, maybe just a custom editor that has a checkbox. But well, actually, if you have a custom editor that has a checkbox, the checkbox will tell you it's a string, and then it's not really a secret with different kind of ways of storing, like, or authentication, the same store providers that you have. So yeah, no, I think it should be a custom editor.
I would like to do it as a custom editor and a custom field, because I think it'll be less breaking for anybody.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the best option in this case. And then later on, if we can make a migration to migrate all the existing passwords to secrets, and then stop the password field, then yeah, can be done in 2 steps then.
Yeah, that would be ideal. But I mean, this is also going to be, it's kind of going to flow through stuff, so it'll turn up an open ID as well, because there's the same kind of scenarios there.
Right, yeah. So, but yes, I will still provide this nice editor, drop down, just a drop down actually, with a custom, new field that will contain the name of the password name. And then if it's set, use it, otherwise use the password. And the password name editor is just a list of all the available secrets.
Yeah, it would be all the authentication secrets. Yeah, that would be my preference for it. And then on workflows, it'll be a similar editor, but it will list the workflow secrets.
Yeah, and maybe you need 2 types of secrets, or 3 or 4, you will see. And that's what you mentioned already with when you add secret. You have authorization secret, you have RSA secret. I think that I don't like the names, but and maybe I'm wrong, but at least maybe there is another level, which is, can I decrypt the secret? Like, can I read the value of the secret or not? I can with the authorization secret, I can with the RSA secret, because as long as I have a private key, I can read the value. But if it's a hashed, I can't read the value. Okay, I can just compare values. So you see what I mean? So, or does it mean that the secret has to be readable in some way?
So the secret has to be readable in some way, but it's always going to be protected by the provider or the store that you use. So, for example, the secret is when it's stored in the database, it's protected with data protection. So you can't just pick that up and take it to another machine. You have to encrypt it on the way out. So how it's stored is the responsibility of the store. For example, this one in app settings is not encrypted at all, because it's in app settings, which is not somewhere where you encrypt stuff. So yeah, for me that encryption level is at is responsibility of the store.
So when you say authorization secret, then you just mean a string.
Yeah, it's a string.
And when you say RSA secret, you mean public private key. Can I say certificate? Public, or is it something different?
So this one will generate them for you. So as you create one, it generates one, and I need to have another button down here to generate a new one. There'll probably be another one which just has the public key, so that you can import them on another server. And there would also, at the moment, I'm definitely thinking of a workflow one, because that has some specific information it needs to store, i.e. workflow ID. So the idea is these are all extendable, and you can create them as you have a need for something specific. So at the moment we kind of need a string one, a key one, and a workflow one that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about the names of your secret types, if they make sense or if they're just based on usage. Like, I might want to store a string and it's not actually an authorization secret. It's just, I don't know, my age, and it's a secret.
Well, I don't mind calling this. Yeah, I don't mind calling this a string secret if it's clearer for everybody.
I'm sure there is a better name, but yeah, and that's something maybe we should drive by Kevin, just because he will know exactly what we mean and what it is and what's wrong here. Even we are on a good path, I'm sure, but I'm sure he will know what's the name of the thing we are talking about.
Yeah, I haven't quite opened the PR yet because I'm not happy how my encryption is, and I know Kevin will have a good look at it and tell me what needs to be done.
We ask him to watch the recording and let us talk nonsense, and he will cry on his desk like, well, okay, all good, thank you. Was it the only thing I had to say? I think so. Oh, and in the configuration file, in the recipe, I really didn't understand your encrypt thing.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about that a little bit. So with the public-private key stuff, you can only encrypt up to 4,096 bytes at a time. So when you do an encryption run like this, what you normally do is you use from all the research I've seen, and Kevin, if you're listening and I'm doing it wrong here, tell me. But what you tend to do is you encrypt, so you generate a symmetric key, and then you encrypt that symmetric key with your private key, but you use that symmetric key to do all your encryption. So the key itself is stored.
Oh, so you actually just encrypt the key and not the payload. It's a double way.
So it's a hybrid double.
Interesting. It's super
because if we use a symmetric one, then we have to share. We can't have the public-private.
It's like salting a password. It's like, yeah, I will actually encrypting the key to decrypt. You can only decrypt the key to decrypt. Because I can. Oh, that's funny. It's interesting. So
yeah, I mean it's super nuts, but at the same way, it's exactly how HTTPS or SSH work. They start with a private with a RSA key, and then they negotiate between themselves a symmetric key, because symmetric keys are fast. The RSA public-private encryption is very slow. So
why not just keep this property inside the RSA password secret and not a global one?
Because the symmetric key that's generated here is unique to this recipe. So the encryption key here, it's for this recipe only. It's never going to get reused again because it gets
but I'm going further. Why isn't it just inside the field itself, the RSA field, line 24? Because the decrypt method, inside an argument with a decrypt here.
So it could be, but this one is used for all of the encryption stuff that you want to do in this entire recipe. So it's a general key.
To provide some kind of encrypt decrypt.
Yeah, I mean it could be here. It's more difficult to read and process it and not have to unencrypt it and decrypt it every time if it's made available to the whole recipe.
You could what I want to avoid is having something like this at the global level, not to again for precedence, to make a precedent. And yeah.
You make me work too hard.
Someone will say, "Oh, I need something, so let's put it on all the recipes." I'm like, no, maybe it's something special to your step or to your, I don't know. Yeah, and because we have variables already, you could define it as a variable and then just point to the variable from your decrypt method, say inject variable here.
Yeah, I couldn't quite get it into the variables. Can't remember why.
Because you wanted to reuse the decrypted secret, and I think we don't care. Even if you have 10 secrets, 50 secrets, which we will never, okay, you will decrypt the encryption key 50 times. Who cares?
Yeah, essentially that's what it would be. So if we don't care about that, because it's not that expensive to do it, to be honest.
I prefer to spend the time decrypting than changing the contract at the recipe level.
One field. Okay, but look, that's a minor issue. We can look at that, or I can look at that. I mean, probably doing it with the public-private is possibly excessive, but I've done it now and figured out how to do it, so it was kind of fun.
I like the technique. I'm sure you talked about it at the time earlier. I don't. It sounds familiar, but I like the technique. Different. Okay, good. Yeah, you explained that it was limited to 4K, something like that, and I was surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I really hadn't looked into how the whole process works, but normally it's that negotiation. And so the only reason that we really need to store this in a recipe, because this could be a negotiation between the two servers, the remote server and the local server that you're running. The only real reason that we need to actually store it in the recipe is so that you can actually do the file export.
Yeah, makes sense.
Otherwise, it's something that we could store remotely on one server.
So it's really about the method. Maybe the decrypt method. Maybe different methods should be used. One that accepts a private key that has been encrypted. One that doesn't care because it will be negotiated.
So yeah, I mean that you could do it as a negotiation, or you could just store the value in a setting on both servers, and both servers would just agree that this was the key to be used. But if you want to be able to support file downloads,
yeah, you need that. I get it.
We need that, so that's the way it is.
Yeah, okay, because it supports everything, so who cares? Okay.
Yeah, otherwise we have to make too many changes to this UI, and then you have to get a pen and paper out and write your write your secret down and then type it in, and nobody's got time for that.
Nope, you don't want to do that. Okay, all good. Yeah, at worst case, you could have in the security settings like what is the key or the secret you want to use to encrypt values in recipes and whatever. So
yeah, what will probably happen is there'll be a setting. I haven't done it yet. It's just hard coded, but there'll be a setting here or a setting here which says for the file target.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick the secret.
Yeah.
And then same on the remote clients. Each remote client or remote instance, you'll just say this is going to be this is the secret to use.
Okay. Perfect. All good. Thank you.
Excellent.
And that was the demo.
Oh yeah, there was going to be another one, wasn't there? Crikey, now I have to change branches. Let's just discard that. Don't need that anymore.
I think I know.
think you know, you're probably right.
I saw blog.
Where are we? Themes. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked a little bit about the idea of having templates and slots, and if there was a different way of just looking at shapes and how we could use shapes. And we didn't necessarily get all the way through the demo, but I've done a little bit more work on it. Originally I did it for Razor. So the idea was to kind of make the tag helpers a little bit more, feel a little bit more like a component that you might use in Vue or something similar to that, where you were able to actually describe in HTML what you wanted to happen to the shape that you were rendering. So I had a little bit more time to work on it, not a heck of a lot. So I wrote the liquid version just to see what it would look like. And this is the liquid version here, which it still has a few problems. But I had to introduce a shape block, which is not good because we already have a shape in liquid. And the trick is to try and do this without breaking everything. But the idea is you have a shape block, which can then render stuff into templates. We have slots again, which we talked about. And then I was just doing some experimentation to see whether or not we could make these blocks take the expressions that we already have to make alterations to shapes, which does work, but because of, and you might be able to help me here a little bit with the fluid side of it, Sebastian, I need an expression to pass into, so I'm just having to this because it expects an expression first and then an argument. So let me just prove that this actually works. Oh, change themes. Nope, this is definitely not the site for it. Let's have a look at this other site. Okay, so there we go. So that's what the kind of template ends up looking like for in your actual content type, and then this is what the header shape ends up looking like here, where you've got just liquid expressions in this case, or liquid tags in this case, to render the slots out in the places that you want them to be at. So that's kind of where I was at with that one. It's so just a little bit of work in progress, really, to see if there's something that's worth doing here.
Yeah, trying to remember the goals and what I'm seeing. So here we are just saying
so
that.
This is very different probably to the conversation that we had, but it also leads on to it.
Yeah, so here you're saying that I want to render a custom blog template, okay, so content-blog, and here you want to reuse, and that is a header component, and you want to customize it across different pages because the header is the same everywhere, but with some subtle differences. So here you made a component for the header, and you are using a shape for that, a shape component for header, and to be able to customize different slots in the component. Where do you pick the name slot from? Angular, React?
That actually came from web components, and I'm not sure if it will stick because I need to make sure that it won't interfere if you're also trying to use web components on the page. It won't be a problem in Liquid here, but in the Razor version, it has more potential to it.
Okay, so this is a reusable component. It's a shape, a reusable component. And it's a shape without, it's a shape that you created with templates and that is not coming from a driver or whatever. It's just, I want to create a component and reuse it.
I want to create a component and reuse it. Now, if we were to take this into the kind of conversation that we had a while ago, you might end up changing this entire template to have no shapes.
Apple. Yeah, it's different.
Where we've just delivered a just the JSON of a content item, and you might, instead of actually having a model.content property which a driver has built up, you might have data. Maybe it's data, maybe it's model. And this would call into, at this point, this would call into the driver and grab the part. Rather than rendering, or rather than pre-building all of these and then displaying this one, removing other ones. You just be a bit more specific about what you want because they aren't all there for you. So it gets, for me, it kind of gets the feeling of templates or templating. It looks a lot more like HTML, and I ran this past one of my Vue guys who doesn't use Orchard at all, and he kind of looked at it, went, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like I can see what it's doing there. A lot easier whenever I talk to him about a shape, he's like, what's that?
My point is more about if we didn't even shapes, if we didn't even have shapes or components, it will be even more easier because just HTML. Give me the data and I will render the HTML. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that would be the other option, but then you get something like
yeah, and that's why components I think are great because they can encapsulate some logic and of whatever level you want. So I like components. I'd rather have like a content item component exactly, and you pass how you load it, and then you can provide a template into it. Or I get it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit for the future because we did talk about this for Orchard too, didn't we?
Yeah, and I want also to talk about it to the MVC devs if there is something they can provide for us. Like they have Vue components. They try to make Vue components in MVC core, and apparently they're not satisfied with that. I want to understand what it is. If it is the same thing, like a Vue component cannot be templated, and then if they could do that, we could use Vue components to provide custom logic that have custom logic, and then use this Vue component with IntelliSense and everything to access all the data in templates. I want to see that.
Yeah, okay. I think that's worth having a look at. I probably will have a chat with you further about this the slots thing because I that's not a breaking change or anything, so might see about a PR for that.
Okay.
because I think it's useful. I think it's nice.
And maybe that's the way to go for further continuation on this feature.
Yeah, I don't want to introduce this kind of concept at this point. It's just for ideas for the future.
The only thing is that there is no MVC IntelliSense, and that's kind of sad. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get some of the nice stuff out of
Blazor has that, and so it's doable, but maybe there is a bridge between Blazor and MVC for these kind of components.
Yeah, because the laser is looking very much like some of this. So more to look at.
Okay, thanks a lot. Awesome. I'm sure you have fun. You would not do that otherwise.
Yeah, no, well, it's fun. It's interesting, and and this is stuff that I use. So,
right.
When it's better, that's good.
Not too much fun, though. Okay, you should not have too much fun. Work. Okay. Well, I will share my screen, but nothing more. So, Dean showed us secrets management updates and shape components. Good. Questions, comments? Everyone's happy with what you're seeing, so that's good. Then next meeting on Thursday, and otherwise next week on Tuesday. Thanks everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.